to get kids to engage in text without the teacher. It was a way for students to learn how to speak academically about a nonfiction or fiction text and focus, really create a student-centered focus where the students led the conversation and the students were given they were empowered to think at high levels and guide each other into deep discussions about things they're reading. So it's really exciting to watch. They are a challenge to create, only in that you've got to be very structured. If you are not structured, a Socratic seminar can really unravel and not yield the kind of results that you're after. So they've been around a while. Lots of companies use them. Some schools are fully, like certain charter schools are only Socratic seminar based. It's how they learn everything. I like a balance. I like to do a Socratic maybe twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. That's probably more than I normally do. Only because I have a lot to do. They take about 45 minutes at least, and that's not including the preparation time it takes to get the kids to read the text and all of that. So they're a little bit of work, but they're definitely rewarding. They are different than anything they've ever experienced as students. They get to have the whole control of their learning and thinking while you're there managing and making sure everything's going okay and people are being respectful and you're kind of making sure that the group is running smoothly, but they run it. There's two camps with Socratic Seminar. The one I just mentioned is my camp, which is I like to step out. I like to step out of the circle, literally. I do not want to have a physical presence in the circle because when I'm in the circle, the kids want to direct all their comments to me. They want to look at me for approval of anything they say. They want to watch to see if I'm going to respond or if I'm going to make a face based on what someone else says. So when I'm in the center, not literally the center, but when I'm in the circle, I become the center of that discussion, and I don't like it. So I remove myself. There's another camp, you can imagine, that puts the person in the circle. The teacher must be in the circle. There's no way that it can happen without the teacher in the circle. The students can't function without the teacher in the circle. And, you know, as long as that teacher can allow the kids to talk and not interfere by going, yeah, I thought that too, or, oh, that's a really good idea. What do you think? So and so. They need to kind of be out of that discussion. Then you can be in the circle in my book. But the idea is to get the kids to talk, teach them how to speak academically, and then teach them how to speak like adults. So in our best hours, adults can look at each other in a group and know when to speak and not to speak and can wait, and we watch people take breaths, and we know the best time to speak. Well, kids just kind of run each other over. So do adolescents and young adults. They just run each other over. They don't really wait for that natural pause or wait for someone to be finished. They just speak when they want to speak. So a Socratic also teaches them the manners of speaking in a public space and when it's appropriate to speak and when it's not appropriate to speak and how to listen and wait with your ideas. So all of those pieces are important to a Socratic seminar. Structurally, I can show you here. I'll just jump in here. Structurally, the Socratic seminar is what it sounds like. It's a circle, sometimes referred to as the Socratic circle, and the methodology is referred to as the Socratic method. So this is a circle on Literacy TA that is available for you guys who want to try this, and I urge you to try it. It is really exciting to see. Kids, you know, I use the phrase, kids can do amazing things. I think when you do Socratic seminars and peer review, that's when you see kids do amazing things. So this is a traditional Socratic circle where students are all facing each other and the knowledge is shared in the center. So all of the knowledge that is exchanged is contributed and left in the center so that it's not one student running it or one student is the smartest of them all. We all contribute to the center so that we all can take from what is being said, and we can contribute to what is being said. And there isn't necessarily someone who runs it, controls it, is the one who knows everything. So this is a visual that I would show my kids. Today, I'm going to focus on helping you guys with what's called a three-group Socratic. You don't hear about a lot of these. You mostly hear just about Socratic Seminar. But this is called a three-group, and I think Avid has one, and they call it pilot-co-pilot, which means that there are two students working together. The front pilot student is the one who's speaking in the circle, and the co-pilot is the person seated directly behind the pilot. My adaptation is a three-group Socratic where there's two students seated behind a single student. So there's a pod of three who are working together in this Socratic. And the reason why I've decided to share this particular Socratic is because it offers a nice balance of structure and empowerment. And then there's some security in numbers. So students feel a little bit safer when there's a number of voices than when they're just isolated by themselves. You can see over here on the right-hand side, I just didn't continue the boxes, but these students would all have three in a group. But you can see, though, just when you remove these other two, how isolating it becomes. And so it's challenging for students to be brave and stand up and share when they're not accustomed to this kind of academic work. So this is the diagram that I use to set up my room. So I guess we could just jump kind of right into it. Let me show you what we have for the middle and high, just so you can kind of see. So in the middle and high, we still have our diagram. What we want to do with middle and high is we want to give them all sorts of sentence starters to help them. Some teachers feel very comfortable teaching agree and disagree. I think you have to be very balanced. If you look at my agree statements, there's only one that says I agree with you. And in the disagree, there's I think only one that says I disagree with you. Most of the time I want my kids to be able to speak more balanced instead of it always being about yes or no or right or wrong. It's really about I hear what everyone is saying, but or let's be careful here. The speaker doesn't say, I like that frame a lot better than I disagree with so-and-so, because I just think it's a little bit adversarial. I think it's it challenges kids instead of getting to the ideas that they really want to discuss. So these are at a little bit higher level. You're going to get some that are much easier for you and access for your kids. There's a planning template. This is a three-group Socratic worksheet that students can use in high school, where there's a question that's asked and then they can brainstorm ideas and write it down. So this is the middle high. For you guys, I'm going to show you the difference. So this is your getting started language stems for you guys. And what we decided to do is make it conversational and friendly. So I want to reference the text. So this is a sentence starter that students would use when they want to speak about the text. The author argues or states or claims or describes, or on page 25, the author states, or in the text there are three main characters, right? So I want to reference the text. I want to support an idea. So we could use the singular I or the plural we. So I like this idea because, so let's say someone in the circle brings up some concept or idea or points to somewhere in the text. I can agree with it by, instead of saying I agree with you, you say things like I would like to add, or I can support that idea in paragraph 5. The author states, you make a good point when you say, I also think this because. Now above this, I don't have high school or middle school students do this, but I think it's really important for our younger students to make these types of moves. I want them to practice listening before they just speak. So you can, as an option, before they go into any of the other sentence starters, you can have them use this template before they use the ones below. So it'd sound like this. I heard Jonathan say that Socratic seminars are a good way to teach students how to think deeply about a text. I would like to add that Socratic seminars also, see what I'm doing now? I'm validating my peer's voice. I'm being held accountable for the listening that should be happening in the circle. And I'm now a little bit more focused on what I'm actually responding to. And I'm going to pick a starter that will help me say my next idea. The final one is, I want to express a different idea. I don't want students saying I disagree necessarily. I want to express a different idea. So after listening to everyone, we think, or I would like to know more about Socratic circles and how they can change based on the size of a class. That's a great statement to make in a Socratic seminar. Or we need more evidence to support this idea before we say X, Y, and Z. Notice it's not saying I disagree. I don't want the kids to get in each other's faces about their ideas. I want them to explore and see what issues there are and why are they an issue and what can we do to solve those issues. So these can be printed out and put on desks, these sentence starters. You can put them in their journals if they have like writing or speaking journals, and or you can project them on your screen. I tend to project them on my screen, and I would leave them just like this so that they can see the different statements, and I'll catch my kids looking up at the screen getting ready to use one of the templates to say something. Okay. Part of the structure of Socratic Seminar is getting kids to think and read before they come to class. And maybe not in that order. We want them to read and then think. So this is a Socratic Seminar discussion map that you could use to prepare your kids for the discussion. So they take this home or do this in class, title the text and the author, write the main idea of the text, or if you're reading fiction, what is the central message, or if you're reading argument, what is the argument on the lines below. So you could say something like, you know, school uniforms, let's say if you're reading a text about school uniforms, according to the author, promote individuality is the argument. Support number one, students don't have to worry about how they look, and if they outwardly show they have a lot of money, so they can be themselves. That happens in paragraph 8. Support number 2. Parents who are single parents struggle to keep up with fashion trends and spend more money than is necessary on their children and their clothes. So that's another support. So that's over here, paragraph 2. Now it says, write an open-ended question about the text you read. The question should challenge your peers to think deeply about the text. So I might say, why did the author begin the text with a story about herself? Or why do you think the author waits till the last paragraph to tell us her opinion on school uniforms? Or you could say, how many details does the author use to support her central idea? So they would write a question here that they can bring up in the circle. Then down here, this is a place for them to kind of just react to the text. So what did you like about the text? What connections did you make while reading? Write one idea that you would like to share with your peers. This would be completed before your students engage in the Socratic Seminar. And I can't explain to you clear enough how important this is to have them do this front work before they actually get into the circle. And you can see, right, how much thinking has to happen and the ways in which we want them to think before they sit down and they talk about a text. I'm going to go ahead and pause because I just dumped a bunch of information on you. Do you guys have questions, thoughts, ideas that you can share with me that I can maybe explain or go a different direction?
We're just taking it in, Jonathan, and hanging on your every word. So stay good.
Well, I'll show you the guides, the teacher guide for it, and then I'm going to let you guys talk for a few minutes just to kind of, what is he talking about? That's not going to work, or wow, this seems pretty clear. We could do this tomorrow. So give me a second. I'm going to share with you the guide, and the purpose of the guide is to really just give you additional support. So here's the guide. And I list materials that you'll need, and then giving time for students to prepare, which is what I just talked about. Starting the Socratic Seminar, we just talked about that. And then this part here, managing the Socratic Seminar. You guys are going to have to decide how you want to run this, but I typically have students change spokespersons. So this person in the middle is the one who speaks to the circle, but then I have them rotate. So I have them move every so often so that each individual in the pod has a chance to speak to the whole group. That's one logistical thing I like to do, and that's talked about right here. And then you need to decide, if you do that, is there going to be a signal that lets them know when they are to talk and when they are to move? And what will that signal look like? I like to do this. This is highly structured, but I give my groups red, yellow, and green solo cups. And when they are talking, their red solo cup should be displayed, and that says that right here.
Those three cups work really well too, like in art. When I've done this, but then we had to use the cups for paint water. But I did have them on the table, and they couldn't just yell out that they needed something. They would have their red cup on top, and that would be a visual signal to attend to. In other words, I will see you, but I don't want to hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. So these cups are excellent nonverbal communication. And you can check in and say, all right, guys, it looks like we're getting close to speaking again. How many of you are ready to go? And then they can either show you a yellow cup or they can show you a green cup. And that lets you know how many of them still need a bit more time. So the idea is that they're going to speak in the circle, but they're also going to be working in these small groups for support. And what you have to manage is, how many times do I want them speaking in their small group? I like to do one per question. So I like the pods to talk about the question that's been posed, get their ideas, have a discussion, stop, ask a new question, or stop, go back to the pod, come up with a new question, introduce it to the groups, and then start the cycle over again. So there's a number of different ways that you can do it, but I like to get the kids involved in their small groups, because if they're not, there's no sense in having the kids sitting behind the main spokesperson, if that makes sense. And then at the top, I give a little bit more instruction on random call. So you're going to need some sort of random call tool. And the reason why I say that is because there's going to be certain days that your kids will not talk. I know that sounds amazing, but in a Socratic seminar, that's not a good thing. So you might need a device or a tool to get kids to talk. So I've listed a few, like simply dice, because you can number off each group, equity sticks, which are the popsicle sticks, and then we have apps like Stick Pick. So I just learned about Stick Pick. Very cool. Unfortunately, it's not free. I usually only recommend free apps, But this one is pretty cool, definitely worth the $4. If you don't know it, it's a little, it's an app that makes noise when you shake it like you have popsicle sticks in a can. And you can pull up a kid because you can upload your roster. Here's what's cool. When you call on that kid, you can rate the kid's response, and then it saves it, and then you can track how well, at what proficiency level, students are asking certain questions. So it's really, really a nice app, but it's $4. So it's one of those things where, you know, is it worth it to you? I don't know. But that's an idea. I wanted to add a little tech piece to it. So let's do this. I'm going to give you guys, and you can explore the site as you know. You would just go to, let me show you where to go. If you want to look at it, you're going to go to the skill library, and up top here or down below, you can go to speaking and listening. So you can go speaking and listening underneath the skill library title, or you can click on it down here. Click on speaking and listening, and you'll be taken to 3 different areas of speaking and listening: academic discussions, in-class presentations, and collaborative activities. Click on academic discussions, and then you're going to click on elementary, and you're going to click on 3 group Socratic. And there's also Debate-A-Side, which is awesome, and that's fully structured and supported too by Literacy TA. So if that's another one that you want to do, that would be fine. But right now, let's stick with 3 group Socratic. Go ahead and take a look online or at your tables, have a discussion. What I will do is I'm going to use one of Google's new fancy tools here. It is a way to get you back to attention. And I will demonstrate what that sounds like so you can know. I'm just pulling it up right now. So it's a musical instrument. So I've got 2 of them. Can you guys hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then there's this one. So I'm going to use that as my call to attention. So when I set you guys off to talk and talk about things that you like or still questions you have, or I'm not quite sure what he means by this, or oh my goodness, I've done this before, it's amazing, whatever it is, I'm going to go ahead and send my signal of music to you, and that should signal you to wrap up the conversation and get ready for next steps. So let's start with maybe 5-8 minutes and have a conversation about 3 group Socratic.
About 3 groups of credit. So, do you want to move together 3rd grade?
Oh, I just like this walk.
You guys want to move together so you can talk? Thanks. I really like your dress. Or skirt. So it's just so feminine. Yes.
So what I do is we want to go. I think it's really interesting. But I do like the idea that it's going to be.
Okay, what he's saying is that he takes himself out of information. He has it structured through conversations, and they all do people that gives, you know, whatever the questions are.
Maybe argue.
Just structured conversations. Okay, and then he puts into groups of 3. And then, so they're sitting in so 1 in front, 2 behind, so that they feel like they're super in the numbers. And then at every question, after one's spoken, he gives them a signal and they switch seats. So now, so that's by the time it's done, everyone, if he does 6 questions, then they all, so like, well, yeah, pretty much. And he'll say, it's a spokesperson. Right. And I know, I do too. And then they have cups on the tables. And so he'll say, after you ask questions, and they've discussed it, and they just showed green with the right or rather they haven't gotten further. So then he takes a quick view.
It's not just very, and then very, and then we have the signal, and then an expression.
I like it because Maria in Morales' house, she's been, do you know that I prefer her speak more now to meet Maria? It was pretty funny though when I was saying Mary, and I'm like, well, probably calling her the wrong name for 7 years, but other than that.
That happened to me too. Somebody said something else and I kept talking to them and they didn't say anything. And it was, actually, and I think they just were wondering why I was, who I was talking to while looking at them. And so, finally the class informed me. And it was like, oh, okay. I mean, the person, the student was like, oh, you're talking. Now we have that straight.
Yeah, and then the
Do you like the idea of doing the circle 3? I like it. I'm gonna try that because it makes everybody talk. Like Maria, she couldn't just disappear in the woodwork.
It reminds me of a pagan structure.
Very much so.
Because everybody's got to share equal engagement, or equal participation, 100% engagement. So I like it.
And if she's not sure what to say, especially second language learners, if they're not sure what they're gonna say, then they have two behind them helping them with their words.
And you put out a question that's to debate, like a controversial subject?
Not necessarily. It's like, it doesn't have to be necessarily debating a side. It could be more of a point of view. I'm not sure.
It could be how a character is developed over the series of a book. It could be
Right.
about the theme of a book and how maybe that theme has developed since, point A of the book to now. It could be lots of different things.
He said something about like, why did the author would take into the cue from, and the author's
The style.
And he did say something that I was interested in. He said, a speaking journal. He was saying like a writer's journal and a reader's journal. And then he said something like that, you're listening and speaking journal. The frames in that. I was curious what he means by that.
Oh, we should have videoed it.
Depending on the year.
We can ask him that when he does.
What now?
Have a video of it in action.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell him to film his kids.
You
I'll
do
give
it,
them
right?
homework.
Film it. We'll put it up there.
I'm not dumb. I don't film myself in class.
Me neither. No.
You're
You
supposed
wait.
to be.
One second.
Okay, great. You're supposed to be talking about this model.
We are.
We are. Mm-hmm. I just happened to touch the computer at the same time you did that.
I know, I was trying to time it.
Okay, so couple of questions. Or I'm the only one that has a question. You said something about a listening journal or a speaking journal.
Mhm.
Do you have? I mean, what is that? I like a writer's notebook, but not a talking journal.
Yeah, so imagine, so some people with writing journals, they put all types of resources, whether it be a text that they're writing about or language stems, graphic organizers, and a lot of, especially in elementary, there's a lot of glue-ins. So you might glue something into one of the pages and then write something on the other side. If we are really focused on speaking, and you could definitely cut up a journal, either work backwards. So from the back to the middle is speaking, and from the front to the middle is writing. You could,
Okay.
you could use the same journal. But there's a lot of things to think about when breaking down a speech, writing a speech yourself, or when you are needing language stems for a number of different discussions. On Literacy TA, we have language stems for almost every one of our skills. Eventually we'll get there. And why we do that is so that kids can have language frames that they can use to model academic language as they speak about whatever, speak about writing the margin, speak about marking a text. And you could create a speaking journal that has that material in there, whether it be glued in or it could be a binder where you've made them into cardstock. So some teachers don't want to put things on the screen all the time, or they want to have something else displayed. And so giving kids access to those starters. And what's great is they'll start using them as they see the use and the purpose. They'll start using them even when you don't ask them to. They'll start flipping to the pages where those resources are, and they'll scan the starters and go, yeah, that's what I want to use right now. And it's amazing when you guys should try this just as an experiment. After your kids have used sentence starters and haven't used sentence starters and then used them and not, have your kids start without them. And they're gonna sound like this. Yeah, so like, yeah, I really feel that it's just that, and you're going, seriously? And then change it on them. Say, all right, everyone stop. I'm gonna put some sentence starters up on the screen. From now on, everyone speaks with a sentence starter, but don't just start and then end with the sentence starter and then do your and, yeah, so, yeah, I really want you to use that as your platform to continue speaking. It is amazing how it changes the conversation. So having those sentence starters at their disposal when they need them is valuable. So that's what I was referring to.
The other question was, do you have, see, I need sentence starters because I say a lot. Do you have a video of your kids doing the Socratic Seminar? It would be awesome if we could see kids in action.
I have recorded them multiple times. I have not put it into a production. I'm struggling with the fact that you can't hear them very well, and I don't know if I want to invest in getting, you know, all the mics and different angles. And so what I can do is try to find some online that have been produced that I can just send you some links. I have raw footage of a variety of different ones, but they're not, you know, fancy and attractive. But this is such a widely used strategy that you can find videos probably all over. But I can try to find one, especially ones for elementary. And I've got some new consultants in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And so we can definitely, probably starting next year, if you guys continue to work with us, we can do some recording in those classrooms to show you how it all works and how the pods change and all that.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so let's talk about assessment. Let's talk about how to assess this monster. There's a number of different ways people come up with assessing. I've come up with a way that, to me, is the simplest, and I think it's the fairest. If you go to the rubric, it's really not a rubric, but it is an assessment tool nonetheless. And what you're doing with this assessment tool, I'm going to zoom in because you only need to see one group. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Good. What you're going to do is write down the 3 names in the group, or better yet, have the students write their names on these 3 lines. And you can see that there's another set right underneath it and another set right underneath it. I want their names written down, and I want their group number written down. So I just assign a group number. The group number doesn't really matter necessarily if they're a 1 or a 7, but I want it written down as another reference. In the sliding scale here, there's 3 criteria: collaboration, contribution, and cooperation. So are they cooperating with the process? Are they cooperating with each other? Are they contributing to the discussion? Are they letting everyone else do all the work for them? And are they collaborating? And here's what I like. You can score them as individuals. Then you can put their group score down below. So you can give a kid a 4 here and say, all right, in the grade book, I'm going to give you an individual score for what you've done today, but I'm also going to give you a group score based on what everyone else does too. So it's a kind of a fair way to give them two different assessments. How did you do as a teammate? How did you do as a team? So and you know, when you talk about contribution, it's going to be up to you what you feel is good contribution. For some people, it's the amount of speaking. But I tell my kids, I don't count grunts. I don't count, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't count exactly. Like those don't count. You have to have a formulated response. And you know, I teach middle school. I'm not teaching elementary, but I'm definitely far away from high school at this point. And all these kids can formulate an academic sentence, a cohesive, coherent sentence that people can understand at you know, first grade. So the expectation that we have to set early on is that you speak clearly and that you speak precisely and with complete sentences, right? And I think that all of you guys would agree with that. So this is a score sheet that you can use. Again, there's all kinds out there, but this one's pretty easy. This one's pretty easy to use. So this is how I would assess it. And then if you wanted to track their progress or have the students track their progress, you can use this. So this comes from Marzano. We've talked about this, I think, before. But this is an adaptation of Dr. Marzano's progress chart in the art and science of teaching. And what this is a place for kids to color in their scores, right? So let's say I want to get to above 9. I'm going to have a multiplier of 2 at least on that score sheet because there's only 5 points. So I probably want to have a multiplier of 3. So if I got a 5, that means I got a 15. If I got a 3, that means I have a 9. So giving them the opportunity to track their progress, track their performance, and set goals. So it's a great way for them to look at their performance instead of them just saying, you know what, that's your issue, you need to deal with that, teacher. We want them to look at what they've done and figure out ways they can get better. So list 2 reasons why you met or did not meet your goal. I was talking while we should have been focused on da-da-da. When I was in the circle, I didn't express my group members' ideas, I just kept them to myself. Now my goal is to, and then what is one thing I can do to help reach my goal? So this is just a nice little tracking sheet that you guys can use. And by the way, you can use it for anything. So you can use it for essays, you can use it for teaching them skills, analyzing central ideas. You can do any of that with this tracker. So that's for assessment. One logistical piece that I don't think I talked about, but I do want to focus on it, is how do we get kids to not run each other over, but train them up to do that well, to listen and speak when it's time to speak. So that's what this one is down here. So what I'm recommending is you guys, when teaching young children how to speak in public spaces, to have them start with raising their hand. I know that's not as fun. I know that's not as adult-like, but doing that a few times will be useful for them because it will show them that they have to be patient and respectful. Then, as they can demonstrate raising their hands and waiting, have them do something a little bit more subtle, like a thumbs up. And so they have a little thumbs up, and you outside the circle calling on the students of the thumbs up. And then when you think that they're ready, take away both of those structures and then just have them speak. So students can listen and learn to wait to speak when no one else is talking or speaking. And that's hard, you know, because you're looking at facial expressions, you're looking at breathing, you're looking at body posture, you're predicting what an idea where an idea would end based on the context. I mean, it's sophisticated, knowing when to talk and when not to talk. It's very sophisticated. So giving them that practice, but giving them the structure in the beginning is an important part that I don't want to skip today, so that you understand that maybe I should have them start with raising their hands, or maybe I should have them move into the thumbs up before I have them just start speaking. Okay. I heard someone talk about, while you guys were in groups, because I could hear a little bit, the texts, the type of texts, and what you could do in a Socratic seminar. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about that so that you're successful. One thing that I have learned is the shorter the better. You don't want to bring in a text that's, 8 or 9, 10 pages long, because they just get kind of lost in all of the pages. I would recommend poetry. Poetry is a wonderful place to start because the lines are short. They can be read over and over and over. They can talk about structure. They can talk about language. They can talk about style. They can talk about stanzas as part of structure. They can talk about meaning. They can talk about central message. They can talk about supporting details, descriptive language. There's just so much that you can do with a poem. It would be a great place to start. That's a recommendation. If you want to do a full story, even if it's a book, do an excerpt. So bring in the first 2 pages of a chapter, or bring in 1 page that is really descriptive of a character. Or I heard a gentleman there mention like character analysis or character motivation. You could do anything with character motivation as long as you've got a text that kind of shows that. That would be great for Socratic Seminar.
Good job, Still.
And that's really the goal, right? Is to engage kids in higher level thinking about text. So if I can get them to think about how characters change over time, or how characters influence the plot, which of course are all standards now in Common Core or College Career Readiness, then we're doing our job and we're getting them to talk. And again, when you stand back and you see your little babies doing this on their own, it takes words out of your mouth. I mean, it's unbelievable what they can do. It's so cool to see their brains engage, and then they, for a split second, or maybe for a moment, they look like adults. They sound like adults. And so it's really a cool thing to do with kids. But I'd like you to start with shorter texts. You're going to find much more success with that. Poems, excerpts, an article that's short, maybe even something a little bit below grade level, only so that you can really dig deep into it and not get all hung up on vocabulary. Socratic seminars really are not intended to break down vocabulary unless you're doing a word study where you're trying to teach kids how to make meaning of words in text, and then maybe you can use a Socratic for that. But you don't want them to get bogged down and not understand, because the more they don't know, the quieter they'll be, if that makes sense. If they don't feel comfortable with the reading material. And that's another thing, content is important. Don't bring in anything that's too controversial, or things that kids, don't talk about religion, because it will cause them to freeze up, some of them. And some of them will cause them to hurt other people's feelings. So you have to be careful what you bring in. I bring in controversial issues, but they're not issues that would impact the students in my room. So let's say I have students of poverty in my class. I'm not going to bring in an article about how families that are poor are bringing down our economy and led to the most recent recession. Like I'm not going to do that, and you guys know that. But I'm just kind of talking out loud about my decision making when it comes to text, length, content, making sure that my students are protected, because when they're in that group, things can be said, and it's easier to avoid that than to try to change it or erase what's been said. So those are some ideas that I wrote down while you guys were talking.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I just found out you're coming to Fresno.
I am. I haven't made my email to you to let you know that. I'm going to be getting on a plane so quickly after the region conference that I won't be able to stop by. I was really hoping that we could do a little session or just get together as a staff, but yeah, I'm presenting at the Regional Literacy Conference.
That's exciting. When is that?
Let me check my calendar here. It's coming up. Looks like it's on the 19th of May.
That sounds right, and that also explains why I've been asked to get a sub. So I'll get to see you again.
That sounds right. Are you guys all going?
I'm not sure who gets to go,
You're probably going.
but I know I get to go.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know what I was signed up for. Now I'm much more about it.
The Fresno Literacy Conference. There you go. All right. Are there things that you guys want to? Oh, one more thing. I need to share my screen because about pacing. I wrote pacing down and I couldn't figure out what I was talking about. Now I know. On Literacy TA, you guys know that we can transform any of the skill web pages into a presentation. And I know that's most applicable for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade teachers more so than K1, 2, or pre-K, only because we use technology in the older grade levels more so than pre-K to 2, let's say. So in the presentation, you could either click here on the interactive lesson or on any arrow on the page of the Socratic Seminar. So if I click on this Socratic Seminar, remember the page transforms into a presentation, and then I can click through, right? And you can see the handouts and the score sheet, and then you've got the support, right? But what you can do is you can put the slide here on instructions, and then since you're engaged in the lesson, you have access to a timer, see? So if you wanted your kids to speak in their pods for 1 minute and 30 seconds, you can run it just like this, and on the screen that's being reinforced that they're doing the 3-group Socratic Seminar, and they're now seeing a time, pacing guide so they can follow it, know when they're done speaking, and move on. And it also keeps you on track, so it keeps it moving and keeps it engaged for the kids, keeps the kids engaged. So this timer is a great option when doing the 3-group Socratic. So I wanted to bring that up and remind you that all of our skill pages open up into these presentations that you guys can use. And then from it, of course, you can click on any resource that you need, open it, and then because it's a PDF, you can zoom in and then it becomes part of your screen. We built this resource, the TA, to be flexible. I'm presenting, if you guys know ISTE, I'm presenting at the ISTE conference in Philadelphia in June. And the ISTE conference is a massive tech conference. It's the largest tech company in education. And it's quite an honor to be there to present. But I'm presenting on responsive teaching. And what I argue is that with the right digital tools like the TA, you guys can respond to various needs in your classroom in the moment, and you don't have to have all these grand plans. You have language starters, you have diagrams and modeling supports and student samples and all these things that it would take you hours to dig through your file cabinet to get to help your kids. You can respond immediately to needs and differentiate your instruction in the moment with tools like this. So I'm presenting at Philadelphia for a 3-hour spot in June, which is exciting. But that's really what this TA does for you in your teaching, is it gives you access to all of these materials that you can use on the fly to address anything. If your kids aren't working correctly, you can pace them. If you want to do, you guys have seen this before, the Collaborate tool. If you want them to do collaborative work, You give them a number. You mix them into groups randomly. I can mix my kids into groups of 4. I can mix them into groups of 2. I can mix my kids into groups of 6. I do this one. Some of you 5th and 6th grade teachers would really like this. I call it a 6-pack Socratic. That's what you're looking at, is a 6-pack. So 36 tables form 6 groups of 6. And each table is a Socratic seminar. Each group, sorry. So 13, 6, 22, 10, 17, and 3. These guys right here, that's one Socratic seminar. And then there's another one and another one, and so there's 6 of them. I call it the 6-pack Socratic. And the kids really like it. So in addition, if you guys want to do something beyond the 3, and this is kind of where I'll end with you guys today. If you want to do something beyond the 3-group Socratic, then what you can do is you can go back to speaking and listening. And then in the speaking and listening section, click on academic discussions. And you can look at the middle high one. And in the middle high one, I have a diagram that shows you different ways to organize your Socratic circles. So this one is my favorite, the 6-pack of these 3. But then my next favorite is this one. It's 2 large circles running simultaneously, side by side. And then this is traditional. This is a traditional Socratic seminar with an inside and what's called an outside circle. So this just gives you some different ways to think about your classroom and the layout of a Socratic seminar and what you might want to do. I chose to develop the one that I felt an upper elementary would do best in, and that's the 3-group Socratic. As always, I deliver tons of material, almost to your detriment, but I feel like there's so much to share, and you obviously can sense the passion I have for teaching. So I tend to speak a lot. Yeah.
Can you go back to the picture that you just gave us? Is the top one on that, is that the one that's in the groups of 3?
No, the groups of 3 is not on there. It's a completely different.
It looked like it could be.
With the blue squares being the ones that don't talk.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that they were closely aligned. Yeah, I guess they could be. Sure.
Just ask the music teacher.
She sees things we do not. That is for sure.
Oh, I see lots of things. Most I don't want to see. Not you. I know. I want to see you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was a little offended, Cheryl. Like, can you get off the screen and show us that again? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you guys unless there's other questions. I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I think we meet once or twice before the end of the year, and I'd love to see some presentations from you guys. Meaning, I mean, very, very unofficial, but what have you tried? What worked? What did you do? How was this year? What would you like to see from us next year if you would like to continue working with us? So those sorts of things, but Cheryl and I can work that out. So do you guys have any questions at all?
Just thank you again for another great session, Jonathan.
Good. Do you guys like this format? I mean, is it enough time, an hour?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, and it doesn't feel too rushed, and it doesn't feel, it feels adequate, like it's a good enough amount of time?
Yes. Yeah, the pace is good.
The pace is good. You just got complimented by a 3rd grade teacher, so that's nice.
Good. Well, thank you.
And very focused on what you're doing too. I mean, I know you can't see us, but we're not all like sitting here grading papers and things like that. We are really focused and engaged with what you're doing.
Thank you for giving me those updates, because I really cannot see you, and it's so hard to to talk to people you can't see. So, okay, well, thank you guys. enjoy the rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend, and continue doing great work with your kids. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan.